Okay, we've done a quick example of Stewart Pharmaceuticals and looked at a decision tree and some analysis. Well, let's look at it in a couple of different ways. Let's look at it with regard to scenario analysis, sensitivity analysis, and break-even analysis. So let's talk about scenario analysis, break-even analysis, and sensitivity analysis in these ways. First of all, it's called what-if analysis. So we're asking our questions: what if this happens? What if that happens? It allows a calculation of a range of NPVs based on the probability of changes in the NPV variables. So we're looking at changing all the variables up and seeing what different scenarios and different aspects of the problem would result. There's a tip here, of course, working with spreadsheets. We want to build the model so the variables can be adjusted with a single cell. In other words, when we look at probabilities, we want to simply change the probability from 60, 40, 70, 30, 80, 20 with one cell, and then have all the equations automatically give you a brand new answer. So you want to build your spreadsheets with data up front, and then below it the calculation that will be changed in that data. So you simply change the data and you get a new calculation. So it's very important to build your spreadsheets properly. We've talked about that quite a bit in this course. And in this case, we're going to look at what if we only get $6 billion in revenue in this particular scenario. So we know our original case is if we are successful with a drug test and we go to cure the common cold out there, as it were, we have a $7 billion revenue forecast if we're successful. What if it's only $6 billion? So let's take a look at those numbers. Investments, the revenues would be $6 billion, variable cost, fixed cost, depreciation, $400 million, pre-tax profit of $8 billion. Take the taxes away, we have a net profit of $528 million. Add back depreciation to get the cash flow, discount the cash flow back over the 4-year life, and we find that our net present value now is only $1.3 billion. Well, we haven't done our drug test yet, and that's $1 billion, and this isn't discounted back either, so this starts to sound like a problem, right? So we just take this $1.3 billion number and plug it back into our test case, and that looks like this. The expected payoff, if it's successful with a 60% probability of success, is now $1.341 billion, plus the 0% payoff if it's a failure, and the net present value valued at date 0 then is a negative $1 million for the testing, plus the discounted one-time period at 10% discounted back expected return of $804 million gives us a negative net present value of $268, and of course the project's a no-go at that point. So if we bring in $7 billion of revenue, it's definitely a go. If we bring in $6 billion of revenue, it's definitely a no-go. And of course we don't know how much revenue it will bring in, which means our risk is starting to compound. We have a risk that we'll pass the test to begin with. Now we have a risk that our revenue won't be exactly what we said it was, and if it's off by even, this small amount, which isn't very much, about 15%, a little more than 15% off, which over 4 years could happen. Now we have a problem that the project, we shouldn't have done it at all. And so this is the kind of sensitivity analysis and scenario analysis you want to run through so you can see what your parameters are and how comfortable you are with what's going on. So in this case, we've got a no-go decision. There's some other sensitivity analysis or scenario analysis that you could do. So a variation on this would be, for example, you could do 3 scenarios. The next 3 years have heavy cold seasons. The sales exceed expectation, obviously, but labor costs skyrocket because of it. The second one is 3 years are normal and sales meet expectations, and of course the third one is the low value is that sales have lighter than normal cold seasons and sales also fail to meet expectations. So you could do 3 more scenarios that way. Obviously your imagination is your only limitation here. Companies will run as many as they feel are reasonable and see where they come out as far as what's really important. We're going to look at that, what's really important in the next case in sensitivity analysis. But until then, you can see that scenarios will give you options. You should be thinking about that for your project. What other scenarios could you run? And start thinking about it like a business manager of scenario A, B, C, D, and as many as you can think of that would give information to a CEO that's really trying to make a decision. So that'll come out in your project a little bit, of being able to run different scenarios of here's our projected sales, what if the sales are high and low. I think I did this in the management budgeting class, or the management accounting class, where we had the budget thing there. We had sales forecast, and then we went bracketed at high and low. That's an obvious way to do it. Other factors, you can look at those too. This is typical for corporate finance, that you will look at many different models of what you think is the most likely outcome, because the future is uncertain, and that's where we get into risk. So there's lots of risks piling up here, and we'll talk about more of that, as well as looking at sensitivity analysis moving forward.